Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your favorite paranormal investigator. My name is Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight, and today on the show we have the incomparable Michelle Desrochers. Today we're going to talk about the hidden history of our world. Let's bring Michelle in. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We have been telling parallel stories to a degree on each other's respective shows. You have three, I have one. That should be out there. She has a lot of extra content that I don't. But she and I have been discussing these entities, these creatures, these potentially alternate dimensional creatures, and the fact that our ancestors have told these stories over generations and generations and generations of these. Well, we'll call them things for now, but these other entities that have a real place in our world to one degree or another. And what I'm talking about is chiefly fairies and giants and other things that are typically folklore, Bigfoot, for example, and UFOs. I mean, even now with all this disclosure happening, we're still saying, are they real? I mean, there's a lot of people that are second guessing a lot of this stuff, left, right, and center, and it's becoming more and more apparent to me that there is just too much there for an ancient society, our ancient ancestors across the globe, telling about the exact same creatures in their native lands all over the world. So there had to be something happening there. One of the things I cite is the Pan, or the satyr, from ancient Greek and ancient Rome mythology. Half man, half goat, and it's not the first time we're hearing about that. And that's one era, basically. Before that, Kingdom of Solomon, when he had his ring, and he was controlling the demons. One of them was satyr-like, half man, half goat, or half woman, half goat. She was called an onyx. But
Yeah. And we see those for like in shows like Pan's Labyrinth. I find
absolutely.
I find a lot of these movies have things hidden in plain sight, but you don't expect to see any real, content in there. You just kind of go, well, that's just myth. Meanwhile, they're like, no, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Symbolism and things like that, right?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And they're still finding statues and writing and other things that only just recently came to the surface depicting these creatures. And it keeps pushing the timeline for these entities to exist in our world. I mean, I credit, hello, Heidi just joined us in the chat. I credit the human race with being very creative. However, no one can have the exact same thing happen to them at roughly the exact same time globally without there being some kernel of truth to all this fun stuff. Or weird stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I often say we're not the first kick at the can here. There's so many theories just as to our planet, dimensionally speaking. Some people say, oh, it's a prison planet. We're just thrown down here. Other people like, no, this is just like a zoo. They're throwing all kinds of things over here and we're all sharing space. But technically speaking, I mean, if you're dealing dimensionally or looking at multiverses or things like that, I think that there are many beings coming and going, and I think you and I have touched on a little bit of the cryptid stuff before, but I mean, I always like to use Loch Ness because it's very famous with a lot of people, and Bigfoot. But in Loch Ness and other places, popular like Lake Champlain, and for example, and Ogopogo, like at least with Loch Ness, they do not believe that the loch can sustain an animal that big. They've done every test imaginable because it's a doable thing because of the size of the loch compared to, let's say, Lake Champlain, which is massive. Like they have a controlled environment or area that they can do this testing. But, people hypothesize, are they coming through portals? Are they just kind of in and out? Because otherwise, where would it be hiding? And that, of course, is a hypothetical.
Well, there was the more scientific. Yeah, exactly. There was the more scientific approach, and I don't know if they proved or disproved it, that there was an actual tunnel way under the loch that led out to the open ocean.
Mm-hmm. That one got explored, and you just don't seem to see a lot of it. Okay. I know people look at these interdimensional aspects of everything, because you look at Bigfoot, for example. Mm-hmm. You're chasing one, it's there, and all of a sudden, footprints stop, and you're like, no trees in the area. You don't know. I mean, they could jump a bit, so you start doing a perimeter search. No, there's nothing there. Where did it go?
Exactly.
Again, hypothesis, but interesting one.
Well, Ron Moorhead follows that hypothesis very, very strictly. Almost, he says, they can move between trees like a teleporter of some sort.
Yeah, he's awesome.
It's an intriguing theory. It's not the first time, and we've heard something along those lines.
Yeah.
Even from major scientists. Mm-hmm. So it goes to show, it proves that there is stuff that is what I would like to call, I guess, put in quotes, if you will. I don't know how to put it, actually. But it's I had a word and it went away. I'm so sorry.
It's starting to feel like charades. Sounds like. I'm just waiting. Yeah.
A big welcome to Janie for joining the chat. Appreciate you joining us, Janie. But yeah, there's the unexplained. That's the word I was looking for. There's the unexplained, and that is just such a weird little catch-all. Oh, it's unexplainable. Well, why is it unexplainable? Give me some more details on that. Mm-hmm. And it just seems to me that is an excuse. I'll put it out there. To call it unexplainable is ultimately an excuse to stop looking into it because of whatever reason. Either there's pressure on the outside from some elites or something like that, or governments or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a story I heard not too long ago. I think it may have even been on a television show where an army, I may have mentioned this before, an army unit was actually sent in after a Sasquatch because he was going rogue and tearing up a logging encampment somewhere. The army was sent in. Great. Completely off the grid,
Yeah.
An operation that was not on the books. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the first things this guy, who was a grunt at the time before he retired, he was some larger, he was like a sergeant or a lieutenant or something when he retired. But he says, when I was a grunt, this is one of my first missions, and we had to go out and bag this thing. And the first thing my sergeant says on the flight out there in a chopper, okay, your objective is this. Shows a picture of Patty from the Gimlin film.
Right.
Yep, they're real, and we're going to go get one. That's the briefing. It's the briefing on the chopper. So, get over your oohs and ahs and, lock it up. Here we go. But I mean...
they captured them when Mount St. Helens.
Oh my God! They
pulled, I think, 3 of them out on helicopters. You could see them. You couldn't hide it. People have pictures.
You couldn't hide it. Yeah.
So there have been whistleblowers who have said that they have seen Bigfoot or Sasquatch in underground bases. Like I don't know. They're definitely there. They definitely have their hands on them, unless there's a specific one they're looking for with respects to color or.
Well, I've heard there's different tribes. Like there's the more primitive, gorilla-like, if you will allow, Sasquatch, and then there's the more intelligent Sasquatch that are even more advanced thinkers than we are with the telepathy and all that fun stuff.
And infrasound and things like that. I mean,
right. But there's 2 different types. There's the primitive type that's native here, for lack of a better term, and then there's the potentially spaceborne versions.
Right.
I've heard all that entire range of theories, which,
Yeah.
which is,
It's pretty crazy when you think
yeah,
about it. It is,
it is.
you know, but we
It,
don't know. That's the thing. They go
yeah,
back way back. Many of these beings that we have seen in throughout, oral history and the indigenous and looking at petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, finding out of place artifacts. I mean,
yeah.
there's definitely a lot more to it.
Hmm.
You
Well,
know.
I'm gonna put up a slide and I'll put it. There we go. That'll work. Back in the days of yore.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
We had, we were living this type of lifestyle, and we told stories around campfires, very much like this one. This is all AI generated PS, so AI didn't get it all right. But as I was talking about in my fairy episode, we had these guys show up. I mean, out of nowhere. This is before humans even were there, apparently, according to the stories, the Tuatha Danann, and these were luminescent beings, like they glowed, and had a control over some sort of energy that they could actually handle, very much like this depiction shows. Where, and their arrival, it sounds like something out of a UFO story. They come down on dark clouds and alighted onto this island. Ireland,
Yeah.
and took over. And it was between two warring factions, actually, and both of them, depending on what sources you gather, and I used AI, and do I have a picture of them? I do not. I'll get into the brownies in a sec. But they fought off these two hordes that were there, and they kind of look and sound like Vikings. There were two rival Viking clans on Ireland at one point, and these guys pretty much decimated them and made them leave. And they ruled for a while, and then they were taken out by a disease that just took them all out for whatever.
They look a lot like,
They looked like humans.
well, yeah, I mean, some people might describe them as Pleiadians, some people might describe them as light beings, you know. I think these are the type of ethereal beings that, or, extraterrestrial beings that,
Oh, hit the wrong button.
yeah,
It's too extreme close up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they would just be considered light beings,
In today's parlance, or in,
I think back in ancient times, they
yeah.
were sometimes. I mean, there are authors like Freddie Silvers called them, like, the shining ones. Are they were they like tall whites, or were they indeed
Right.
humanoid? I mean, I think the pagans, or the druids. There's so much ancient history that goes back there as well, that dealt with beings such as this, because they were very open to it. People don't realize with the Fae is that before the church actually came in and took over, especially in many of the Celtic, traditions, they had a place. They worked alongside humans. They would help with education. They would help with, just in caring and like shamanism and helping in so many ways. And then the church came in, and of course, like anywhere they go, I mean, you're going to assimilate into the culture. They're going to keep some of your traditions, and they will maybe alter them and, merge them together.
Yeah.
But they were driven underground.
Yeah.
So they go underground, and over time, the church essentially turned people against them.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, it was as you put it, a mass assimilation. It's sometimes violent, other times just like, no, here's the real story, that type of thing. It's like, oh, you got it wrong. You're close, but here's what really happened. It was saints and apostles and Jesus and the whole thing. But going back to our luminescent friends here, sorry, I like this one better. There's this also echoes other cultures. The Mesopotamian, Mesoamericans. Sorry, who were taught by luminescent beings who came down and taught them agriculture and law and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How to be more civilized, I guess is the word. And it's just a matter of, if you put the timeline together, it is happening simultaneously, globally,
Mm-hmm.
which is beyond just, I think, if you're going to classify something as unexplained, I think that's something we need to delve into. What is the actual timeline? And, Zachariah Stitchin and his followers and, and all
Mm-hmm.
those guys, and up to, gosh, I just blanked on his name, Billy something. Can't remember his name all of a sudden. But,
Are you tongue-tied? Yeah.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
My brain stopped. But,
Yeah.
Billy Carson.
Mm.
So from Stitchin to Carson, we have this hidden history, which is kind of the theme of this show and the title, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
of these characters, we'll call them for now, in our past that were there around the world,
Mm-hmm.
globally, at
Mm-hmm.
roughly the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And some people call them gods because they had advanced knowledge or advanced powers, like our Tuathan friends, or the Tuatha De Danann that I just had a picture up of.
Mm-hmm.
And other times we had more serious interpretations of these characters that as to being more alien and foreign to us, and they didn't look humanoid at all. But for the most part, I find very fascinating is that they were humanoid or human, very much like us. And
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say a lot of it has to do with interpretation or misinterpretation. I mean, they would just document whatever they saw.
Yeah.
I think beings from the stars are often mistaken as gods. You have people like this that look like shining people. They would have been looked at probably even almost angelic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of theories around that, but I mean, that's even where reptilians come in. Like the early extraterrestrials that would have been looked at as gods coming in on shining chariots.
The chariot
But
of the gods. Yeah, exactly.
exactly. So were they early ancient, or earthly ancient people, or were they overseers? Like what were they all exactly? So I think having people, let me back up, having these beings coming down simultaneously, I think you have to start exploring. For example, let's talk Atlantis, which people thought, and that's just one civilization out of how many civilizations, which
Right.
people believed was one island or one spot. Whereas now, a lot of research, and I believe even with Edward Casey making mention, it looked like Atlantis may have been a worldwide
Oh, a series of cities and outposts. Yeah.
civilization,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's what the latest research would
Yeah.
definitely
So
suggest. Yeah, that's fascinating.
it is very fascinating, because there are so many different locations. They're like, well, this was Atlantis. No, this was Atlantis. No, this was Atlantis. Maybe they were all Atlantis. But if
Yeah.
you're looking at that and you're looking at a belief system, or you're looking at maybe the people who lived there, you have to factor in that maybe some of these beings, like they were so advanced, it doesn't mean that they were all strictly humanoid. Maybe there were other worldly beings that were a part of this culture as well, which would be a very good explanation as to why they are everywhere simultaneously, because
Yeah.
so were certain civilizations.
Well, a lot of folks in our field
Yeah.
talk about the first civilizations, or one of the first civilizations on this planet, being like Lemuria, for example, and Atlantis, and all these other
Hmm.
fabled first civilizations that were here before the last ice age that we just had.
Hmm.
They were here, and then ice age happened, and we were
Yeah.
all knocked back to the Stone Age, basically.
Yeah. Well, so
So
it's believed. I mean, you look at ancient Lemuria when that whole continent went down.
Mm-hmm.
It's believed that they made their way, through Antarctica, right up. There's a very strong belief that ancient Lemurians live under Mount Shasta.
Oh yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's in my
So
neighborhood. That's like
they go.
100 miles from me.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you just got to go connect with some ancient
Yeah, right.
Lemurians.
Let's go hike into that cave.
Exactly. Well, yeah, some people go and some people don't come back.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
My next show will be live from Shadow. No, it won't be. But
or not. Yeah, we'll be channeling Tim.
Right, exactly. Tim,
where
are you here? You're out there with the dowsing rods. Are you here? Yeah, thank you.
Exactly.
Big hello to Mort for joining. Thanks for joining us, Mort. And I said hi to Janie and Heidi once again. And Heidi had an interesting question. Actually, I think you answered it about light protector beings. Do either of you have you ever heard of light protector beings? I have, and I guess that's a reference to the Tuatha De Danann folks we had, the glowing angelic folks. These guys,
Yeah.
but
I think
I've
it's
heard of them.
all in the title too, right?
Yeah.
Light beings on average. I think if you have any being of light, they're going to be protector. We may call them guides.
Yeah, that's true. And there's these two psychologists or former psychologists who very scientific, strictly scientific, and they had this moment individually. They had these moments of clarity where the wife, they were a married couple. The wife Barbara had just this telepathic communication with a whale. They went whale watching out in the Caribbean, and the whale just, she just kind of thinks it out. Barbara says to the whale, "Thank you for sharing all this with us. This is just amazing." And the mother whale said back, "Oh, you're entirely welcome. Go live your life. Be all you can be."
Yeah.
And that was like, the whale talked to me in my brain, And then and then her husband is walking down an alley, and a voice comes to him and says, "There's a man over there who intends to do you harm." And he looked around. There was no one there. And he says out loud, "What?" And then the voice replies, sarcastically and a little ticked off, "I said there's a man over there. He's looking to do you harm." Oh, okay.
I'm out of here.
And so he avoids the thing and he starts looking into a more spiritual aspect of things. They meet up at a camp. I'm sorry, I'm telling their story and it doesn't really relate to what we're talking about. But
it's okay.
They both had this shift where they approach things spiritually, and they followed into, if you know who Elena Danaan is, she's the one who purportedly was an abductee and had a chip put in, and it went, and there was no way to really save her except to alter its intent, and became a communicator. So she now has real-time communication with her heroes, and she drew up this whole map of all the different aliens and count in the whole Galactic Federation. That's pretty.
Is a theory.
That is a theory.
And
And
it's coming out
it's,
now that's contradicting some of that. So
I know. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of contradiction to her initial.
Yeah.
Stuff.
I think, I think these beings have been around forever. They predate, humanity for sure. And I think once we get a really good understanding that some of this stuff is like either, again, multidimensional, interdimensional, whatever the case may be, I truly believe that we will have a better understanding of who they were, where they were, why they were here, why are they still here? I mean, they're still, people are having sightings all the time of different beings, right down to cryptids, modern times,
Oh yeah.
like when I'm told, like, "Oh no, we see a centaur out over here," I'm going, huh. Okay.
All
But
right.
but I know the area, and I know that there's a lot of different things that come from it, and that a lot of things are starting to surface. I
Mm,
think right now, as the world is having this crazy awakening,
yeah,
is it that maybe they weren't here, or is it that they were here and we just couldn't tune into the frequency to see them or experience them?
that could very well be. That could very well be.
Mm.
We're you were saying that they were our visitor friends have been here for a very long time. Well, look at some of the Sumerian tablets. There
Yes.
is there's actual depictions that they had Apollo style rockets as their vehicles.
Hmm.
Apollo style. They weren't Apollo rockets at all. They're
Okay.
probably way more advanced, but
Yeah.
they still had that tubular, elongated,
Mhm.
cylindrical thing going. And they actually have depictions of this in their old writings.
Yeah.
And there's even a star map that tells you how to get to Earth. Like there's like fire your retros here, here, and here, and you'll circle in and you'll land on Earth.
Rough stop over here, the sessions over here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know.
Take a photo in front of the cave over here.
I know. I
But it's fascinating because that, I mean, if you have an Apollo style, perhaps more advanced
Mhm.
version of a starship that has to fly through the universe, and at least from outside our immediate solar system, because they depicted the 9 planets, including Pluto,
Mhm.
or presumably Pluto,
Mhm.
and maybe they did have a mothership. I don't know, but
Mhm.
still, that is how long has it been since we've been around that we finally developed the rocket in the 60s? A rocket we can travel in.
And how much of it may have been, I say, back engineered.
Yes,
You know,
there is
we
that.
don't know how far back it goes.
Yeah.
I think
And
we also
there has been a quantum leap since since early 1900 pretty much to now.
well, especially since Roswell,
Oh yeah,
especially,
especially then.
I
But I
mean,
mean,
the last
even prior to
75
that,
years.
we were having major quantum leaps in technology.
Yeah, it was starting. It was starting for sure. But let's factor in that there are power spots and stargates all over the universe, the planet, and the ancients, they just seem to know where they were, or perhaps they were shown where they were, and they would build around these places. And I mean, even Solomon's temple spoke. People would speak about how angels would just come in, or they could come in and out at will. Like, we know they were there where they could just move around. And then you have the church comes in, and it's not a coincidence that they would settle up on these spots where there were prior temples and you know,
Yeah,
Temple of the
yeah,
Goddess, and just, other
exactly.
churches, or
That's
where,
entirely.
in the forest where Jews would go. Like, they knew where to go. And you can create portals. Any person can create a portal. It's not hard. So when you factor that in,
Sounds like that guy in Sedona, Arizona did it
I mean,
with a speaker.
yeah, I mean, things come in and out. It's just, it's not, it was very, I think, more commonplace then
Yeah,
than what we do now, because I think when you're looking at conditioning, when you're just looking at being dumbed up, we're just not tuned in anymore to the same frequency.
not as much. No, not at all. Not really. Big hello to Guardian who joined us in the chat. Hello, Guardian.
Yeah.
And let's also factor in some of these weirder creatures that have come along. We have, and this is interesting to me. We have here a picture of a couple of fairies on a hilltop. This
Mhm.
actually looks like two girls wearing a costume, but that's what AI came up with.
I know.
But it's fascinating to note that while they're human sized,
Mhm.
the wings actually didn't come into play until the Victorian era. Did you know that?
Mhm.
I didn't know that until I did my research. I thought that was kind of interesting.
The Victorians
But
Victorians are about a lot of stuff. Yeah.
they came up with a ton of stuff,
Mhm.
and a lot of it to kind of explain stuff away. I mean, it's one little side note, little side story is that Do you remember those two little girls in the 20s or 30s or something like that who claimed to have taken pictures of fairies?
That
Do you
they
remember that?
proved was a hoax.
And it was proved it was a hoax later on.
Yeah.
But they fooled a lot of people because they were paper cutouts. Sorry kids, spoilers. They were paper cutouts on hat pins dug into the earth a little bit, and in one of the photos they took, the wings were blowing in the wind. There was a strong wind kicking up, and the photographer who analyzed this, who was supposed to debunk it, says, I don't know how those wings are in movement in the one still because it's blurred because the wind was blowing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It started a whole movement. It really did.
It did. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, even Arthur Conan Doyle went to investigate.
I know.
It was freaking crazy.
You know what? The folklore out there is so big with fairies to start with. I mean, when I was in the UK and I visited, the fairy pools and the fairy glen and the fairy king's grotto, and I was in Highlands, and it's kind of like it just really makes you stop and realize, the belief system of, were these beings there? Are they still there? There are people everywhere who see them. You can remote view, you can see them. So you're just kind of tapping into either beyond the veil into another dimension, or you're just coming in as a remote viewer or through meditation where you can see something because you're just looking through a different window.
Through a different lens.
But they're definitely there.
Yeah. It's fascinating that most remote viewers and psychics like yourself can actually perceive these creatures. I cannot yet, but I'm hopeful.
Creature's such a strong word, Race of beings is usually my comfort level usually.
Okay, I'll go with
mind
beings.
you, Tinkerbell. Even Tinkerbell looks cute, but she could be a real badass.
Yeah, she can mess you up pretty good.
Yeah.
This is an example of a fairy ring according to AI, but I liked it because it also portrayed the portal.
Yes. Yes. But definitely. I mean, they were, very connected to nature, which is why so many people who lived within different forested areas and within the mountains and would see them. And this is accounts that I get even today from people who see them. It's usually within the gardens. It's very, very nature driven.
Yeah. Oh, there's the guy in Ireland, and Ireland's interesting. They will actually lock off a place and call it officially, you can't build there because the little people have been seen there.
That's true. I know.
There was one recently, like in the last 10 years, where there's this little pathway out close to the forest, but still in town in one of these little villages. And this guy was sitting there. He says, "Oh my gosh, I saw a little person." And he comes back the next day. "Oh my gosh, I saw him again." He reports it to the town council, and they lock it off. You can't do anything about it. Don't step there. Don't I think they even have little signs as little people at present. And there's a series of trees and rocks and other things you cannot touch because the fairies have been associated, and the fae folk have been associated with it.
Well, they're pretty protective of their spaces. The gnomes do the same thing. Norway was putting in a highway, and they were going to take down this tree, and gnomes started sabotaging everything, and they actually halted construction and decided to go around the tree, and then everything became all like tickety boo after that. But I mean, I've had Joshua Cutchin on my show, and he's going to be coming back. He's just wonderful, and he talks a lot about the UFO phenomenon and the fake connections. So right there, when we get that connection with so many different cryptids, and it happens. People talk about being abducted or taken away by the fae as well. So it's important to really note that connection.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating in old fairy tales, old
Jen.
accounts. Hey, Jen.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jen. I haven't seen you in a long time. I was on her show a while ago. I should have her on mine. Jen will set that up. But this is something AI came up with, and I just said, "Tell me about fairy craft," and it came up with these UFO looking things, and that's what the old tales were like. They said the
Mhm.
little fairies came down in little craft.
Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, there is a correlation between fairy, interactions and UFO interactions."
There
It,
are. Jacques Vallée really believed that a lot of the different UFO counters had a real striking resemblance to
mhm,
different pieces of folklore and myths, and a
yeah,
lot of the Fae historical accounts and mystical beings on average. So instead of always assuming that, oh yeah, these come from another planet, or it may just I think he was kind of suggesting that UFOs might represent more of an interdimensional visitors or
mhm.
phenomenon beyond the conventional understanding of time and space.
Yeah, entirely possible.
So
One
sure.
thing hey, how's it going, Sherry? Um, Sherry just joined us in the chat. For those of you who don't know, if you want to join us in the chat, I would like to invite you to do so. I have a little ticker to tell you where to go. That's not it. Is that it? That's it. That is
Yeah.
it. So you go to youtube.com/@ paranormal underscore insight insight. Oh my gosh, /streams.
You'll be
Or you can go to
okay.
UPRN
Yeah.
YouTube and follow us there as well.
You will be all right. So,
And
yeah.
yeah,
So
so there's
it is
that.
very
So I'll keep that
fascinating
going for a
though.
second. It's
Yeah.
very fascinating. And one of the other thing is we have modern tellings, more modern tellings of little creatures, and I'm referring to specifically, if I can make it happen, the Hobsonville Goblins. This
Oh
is a I
goblins.
no okay. This is
Yeah,
an
they're
AI
they're so
rendering.
mischievous.
Oh, they were horrible.
I
They
know.
picked one of the brothers up by the hair as they were standing on that little overdrive over that little
Mhm.
roof right here,
Yeah,
and by the hair. Ouch. And
I know.
one of them, or a couple of them, apparently were, according to the reports that these people gave, in all earnest, that they actually popped a couple of these things, and they rolled over and they played dead for a second, then they got right back up. It's like, oh,
Forget fight or flight. I'm just gonna roll over.
yeah, yeah,
Take
yeah,
my
just
chances. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
man.
So
Say
it
I'm
makes you
sorry,
wonder
and
then, are they part of, like the
yeah, that was
Fae
kind of
folklore?
my that's kind of
Yeah.
my take too. It's like, are we
Yeah.
dealing with one and the same thing? Is this our hidden history? Is this part of?
Because when you start getting into a lot of the grotesques through that, that are depicted throughout the ancient world, for example, a lot of them would resemble, like gargoyles and things like that, or little
Right.
ninnies like this, or like,
Hmm.
where did that come from? If it wasn't
Yeah.
witnessed, like somewhere along the line, someone must have had this sort of a sighting to be able to carve it, because people emulate what they saw or what they experienced. Do they fall under some sort of, maybe, gargoyle race? Do they fall under sort of some demonic race? Because you have
Yeah.
these guys, and then we've got like gremlins, and gremlins are like really mischievous, but
Oh, they
they're
resemble
also
gremlins.
helpful. Well, they do, and they're
Yeah.
also helpful as well, right?
Yeah.
So I don't
I
know.
don't know. For my money, what I think is happening is we have folks who either witness this and just it's in their face and they can't not see it, or
Yeah,
we have folks powerful enough like you who have the psychic abilities and can see the other side of things. I think maybe there is the initial glimpse of what these things actually look like, and then there's sort of a glamour that happens, or some sort of
yeah.
manipulation at the psychic level that says, okay,
No, I
this is
don't.
more tolerable. They can handle this if I look like this.
I don't see half of what's out there. Believe me, sometimes it catches me just as much as off guard, you know. But no, I completely understand, where you're going with it though. And I
Yeah.
think there is. I believe that there are beings out there, obviously, who can manipulate or control how we see them, or if we
Mhm.
even see them at all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was
So
that the one video recently. It was I don't know how old it is, and I wish I had the foresight to put it up here, but I don't have it. But it is straight out of the movie Predator, where this guy's just filming something. I think he's looking at a squirrel or something. But there's a telephone pole, and this thing slides down, and it's mostly invisible, except their distortion field or whatever wasn't completely working all the way. Their camouflage, and you see this thing's huge too, because it was about, when it landed, it was about maybe a third the size of a standard telephone pole.
This is crazy.
It was nuts. It was nuts. And I'm in the film business. I know enough about AI and special effects. That was not, if that was special effects, that was something, bravo, because you fooled me.
Bravo. Yeah, you did it. I'll tell you though, there have been many accounts, and I'll use reptilians for example, of people who have had, I mean, one story that was told to me, she had like a full-blown relationship with this man. And I mean, and it was amazing. And under hypnosis, she was said, okay, I really want you to look, and I want you to feel the skin and tell me what you feel. She realized at that point that after a year of having this relationship, of what she was really looking at under hypnosis.
Oh, yeah.
So could you get past that? I mean, if you're looking, because this being was very, very kind to her, and there was like a very like amazing physical connection, shall we say? Everything was really good, but when she realized, it was just like, it's like you say, you're being glamored. It's just like, look at you. It's like, oh yeah, look at you. Right. So after that, you're kind of trying to figure out the dynamics, and I guess it just didn't work out. So yeah.
Sorry, Steve. I know what you really are, and I can't do it.
I know. Especially when you're looking at, Steve's like 6 foot or 7'5" or something, But yeah, so I mean, it does happen. I've heard a lot of accounts like that where people have a sighting and it's a reptilian, and they only catch a little glimpse of it, and then they just don't see it. And I think it's also being spammed. I don't think I can remove that one. I think it also comes down to people who see, like I've been on tours where they say, oh, this object moves, or maybe there's a spirit there that's giving the illusion of seeing that this object is actually moving, because statues cannot technically bend and move and change arms,
right.
But they will give you the illusion that they are. A lot of it is,
I get you.
We're being played with. Yeah. Yeah.
Jen popped up with something about elementals with a question mark, and I guess I understand that question. That are these things more spiritual, pieces of the force that were made manifest in I guess the spiritual form of the force. That's entirely possible, but I would personally, from my perspective, I mean, I don't know, to be completely honest. I don't know.
Work with elementals. They could be highly aggressive, or they could be somewhat helpful. I think if you have an understanding of why they're there and their nature spirits, elementals, or the 4 elements, 5 is more than just the generic, but let's just go with the generic. And in the cases where we have worked with them, they're very much about the trees, the forests, and people coming into their space and perhaps building in a spot that shouldn't be. And they have high levels of activity, even essentially fires being started, all kinds of things.
Oh, sure.
But I was taught by an incredible energy earth worker, which is what pretty much put me on that path to do the same. He taught me how to deal with elementals and what you had to do. And certain times of the year, they would do different things, and other times of the year, they would behave a certain way, and it went with the seasons. So when I got a really good understanding of that, and what needed to be done, never again did we come across an elemental we could not work with.
Interesting. That's very. We ran into an elemental, and it was the first time I ever actually not interacted directly, but
Yeah.
it happened on a case when we were doing an investigation, and apparently the resident who was leasing the place out somewhere out in the country was either paid to or took it upon himself to diminish the squirrel population. Because they had a lot of cows there, and I guess they were digging holes and making it hard for the cows. But que sera. But they, I mean, seriously, there's no reason to kill a squirrel, man.
Well, unless your cattle's breaking.
Unless your cattle's in danger of breaking their legs. Yeah, I get it. I get it. But apparently, this guy was a little zealous about it off the books,
Right.
and as he's giving us a tour, or one half of my team a tour out in the fields, the psychic was on that tour, and she stopped this thing from attacking him because apparently he was just gonna go in, full kung fu style.
Enough's enough. Yeah.
And right, exactly, and because they were killing off their squirrel friends, and so. She was able to calm the spirit down, apparently, and had this thing kind of doing the whole koala bear thing, just holding on to her the whole time.
Yeah.
During the investigation while they were outdoors.
Yeah.
But it was the first time we ever encountered an elemental and really kind of got an idea of what their sensibilities were, and in doing that experience. Yeah, I agree. Jim. We love squirrels. In that experience, yeah, or cute and nutty, but bum.
Yeah.
But the experience made me dive into elementals, and it turns out they are way old as a concept. I mean, one could say it's a psychological thing. Humans didn't know what it was, so they assigned these things to it. Not too dissimilar to the Fae. If you want to take that anthropological step, however, for me, having that experience on my team during the investigation, I don't think it's a matter of an anthropological thing, because in today's modern society, I could not explain that. I'm not the best scientist in the world, but I could not assign that level of very real animosity, because everyone felt this thing charge, and I felt spiritual charges before too.
No, I've worked with some things. That
they get aggressive quick,
but elementals were one. I mean, I've worked with families who have been plagued by them. Once I got an understanding of how to deal with them, and a lot of it is energy. They're energy beings, and they can be aggressive, they can be helpful, but they're very territorial. And once I got a handle on that, then our team had no issues with them at all. We were able to calm them down relatively easily. If you can communicate telepathically, that's a bonus. That was something that was being done via the team, and things calmed down. We just didn't have problems with them after that.
That's great. That's really great.
But I mean, they're earth spirits, and you factor in how old the earth is, how long they've been there, and depending on the area, the whole planet is old, but when you're looking at civilizations where they maybe have been interacting with humanity or vice versa, you are looking at thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. So keep your elementals happy, especially if you have gardens and trees. Treat the trees nicely. I'm saying.
I started watering my. It's old.
Yeah,
I had this redwood in my backyard, and
well, a lot of them go from the roots to the top, and they do things that they behave certain ways at certain times of the year.
Anyway, I just had a sensation. I had to water my redwood a little bit more, so I started doing it.
Yeah,
and, it did okay. Let's see. I'm sorry. I was following a story in the chat, and I lost my spot. They call them the old ones. Yes, the elementals are called the old ones. That's true. Yeah, and they are. They're freaking way ancient. Yeah. And
we share space with a lot of different beings.
oh
And
yeah,
I think because again, we vibe at different frequencies. And it is the frequency that if you can't tune into it, you're not going to connect to it. It's that simple.
yeah,
I think if you really work with energy and teach yourself, I find it like amazing. But again, I come from like a family like of seers who that's primarily, my grandfather used to tell stories about being energy movers. I didn't quite have an understanding of it at
ah,
a young
that's
age,
neat.
but it was always very easy for me to do. So it's just something that is taught, something that you observe or you sense, and it just became something that in shifting from shadow work into light work, it's fascinating, really fascinating stuff, and watching how things unfold and working with these other beings that are energy. And you realize if you can connect at a certain frequency or try to match that frequency, you're going to have one heck of an experience.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
That is,
yeah,
I'm trying to get there.
yeah, yeah. It's
Trying
a
to get
great
there.
thing. It's a great thing. Yeah.
Big hello to Sparky, who joined us a while back, and I also want to say hello to Sherry if I didn't already. And I think that's all the new folks who joined us. Lots of great stuff going on in the chat. Apparently,
It's a whole world of their own in there. Could do a show just on
yeah,
what's
they
going on
could.
in the
Yeah, I
chat
know.
right
Just
now.
follow the chat, folks. You just got to read
I
it.
know. Yeah.
Good times. Let's quickly, before we take our break, let's quickly jump into the other side. So from the little people to the
Dun, dun,
big
dun.
people, the giants,
Yeah.
and their influence on our not only our mythology but
Mhm.
on our reality. Because a lot of stuff has come from the giants as well. And it for me, it's one of the more fascinating aspects of
Mhm.
our shared history. And again, this is another global phenomenon.
Oh,
It's
we
not.
talked about this last night, and
Yeah, I
it's
know.
pretty.
I saw that. I was like, oh
Uh,
no, we're going to
oh,
cover this again for our
it
show.
doesn't matter. I've covered it so many times. It just doesn't even matter, But it's just funny how things work out. Like I laugh at synchronicities because I mean, I book my shows probably like a good 6 to 8 weeks, and so topic already in place. So it's just like it's interesting how things work out. But it's also something that is, I think, it's surfacing because people are starting to make the connections.
Yes.
I think they really are. And giants have been around, man.
Oh.
They've always been David and Goliath.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
know what I
there's
mean?
a real when you talk about giants, we've actually had our own version of this in the natural history. That's on record. That's in
Hmm.
museums for even. And
Hmm.
this is an interpretation by AI of what the not the Aesir's, but the Titans looked like from Greek mythology, but it also described
See,
as
again, the
giants.
mythology
Yes,
connection,
it
though.
starts with mythology, but we keep finding evidence that these things were
Well,
at
yeah.
least not, if they were just a legend, it happened globally, and if they were
Mhm.
just a legend, why do we have their bones?
Well, Smithsonian's
Smithsonian. Oh
dumped a
yeah,
bunch in the
yeah,
ocean. I
yeah. That
mean,
was on my last show. Yeah,
I
they
had
went all over the place and robbed every grave of their.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a woman named Maria Wheatley on the show and talked about her research on giants in Aruba. And it was fascinating, fascinating stuff. But when you start getting into all of the different, going, for example, to Sardinia, which has some of
Hmm.
the largest known giants who have appeared. I mean,
Yes.
going up as much as like 15 feet plus. I mean,
Right.
they grow them big in Sardinia, let me tell you.
Yeah, they're huge.
Whereas when you come into North America, and you're getting into 8 feet
Hmm.
plus, I mean, there are museums in, I think, North America, or northern. I don't know if it's New York, upstate New York, or Pennsylvania, but you can go in because many of them were killed by the indigenous. And a lot of indigenous people have stories of their people killing
all of them.
giants.
That's the thing. All of the tribes have those stories.
Well, they must have been very aggressive giants, like obviously cannibals and things like that, because you start doing that when everybody turns on you, and they won.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They wiped them out.
Yeah. Right. So there's a lot there.
Well, there's also a there's the brothers. There's two brothers who are, I'm blanking on them, but they took some of these. They went to some of these places, and if you look at, and I'll share the photo. If you look, okay, so this one guy here in the middle, that's in Austria, and they found this guy's leg bone.
See, right? You were lucky that didn't go missing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I'm very fortunate, and I verified this through a few different sites before I even put it up on my thing last week. This is in America. This one up in the upper left. The one in the lower right is called the American Stonehenge, but the bulk of it was knocked down.
American Stonehenge, I know the guy who owns that. You should have him on.
Is that right? Oh, I'll have him on in a heartbeat. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then this is one of the other tombs or vaults, and when you go in there, it's 30 feet deep, and it extends way underground. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then this wall here is one of the last megalithic walls in America that's out in the open. All the other forts are hidden or knocked down.
Or, some of the mounds that you see. I wonder if that one at the top right corner when you go down, but I wonder if it's part of an old mound.
It could. Well, it didn't look like it from up here. What the stuff I pulled this from says it was a vault that went in, down, and then out again. And it wasn't a mine shaft because it was too small to be a mine. Pardon me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, but it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's amazing stuff. So we actually have, and especially that center picture, verified, accounts of giants, and we have people today that could qualify as giants, and I'm referring to specifically this gentleman right here. This is Oliver Richter's. He was on the show. Jack Reacher with Alan there. Now, Alan Richardson, I can't talk, is 6'5". His co-actor there is 7'2".
I had friends who were 6'5" and 6'7". I thought that was pretty.
Yeah. No.
Wow.
Alan to the right here is 6'5". This dude is 7'2", and now he doesn't suffer from any pituitary issues or any. Yeah. Any other glandular or gigantism. He's just a big dude. And he's one of the... And there's no one in this... Wow, for some. I mean, it's purely genetic because no one in his family is that big. And he's from, like, the north. Like Sweden, or not Sweden, but Denmark?
Norway?
No, I can't remember. Norway, maybe?
Yeah.
But he's from that area. Dude's
that's
there.
Healthy living right there.
It's really healthy living. I mean, the guy is literally a giant.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy?
And but he doesn't have any of the medical anomalies that come with being that big typically. Like the world's tallest man, he's like 7'11" or something like that, or I don't know. Yeah. And he was this hunched over dude, and he had all kinds of joint issues and stuff like that because he had a thyroid issue.
Yeah.
This guy does not have that at all. He's totally fine. He's healthy as a horse, and
no
one else in his family is that big.
Modern day, modern day.
Exactly.
There's so many. Like I say, you get traces of it, like the Kandahar giant, Afghanistan. That's recent in the last
very recent
decade, sometime last 5 years, where U.S. troops were said to have killed one, have taken one down.
Yeah, they took one down. Yeah, that's what they said.
Gilgamesh was said to have been a giant as well.
Yes, Gilgamesh, Moses. Now that's something else I want to get into, but first, let's take a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in... Actually, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in like 15, 20 seconds as soon as I can figure out where the commercial... There it is. Okay, I'll see you in a second, folks. This is the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. uprntalkradio.com. Esoteric programming at its finest. And we're back.
There we are.
So there's something to be said. I was talking about larger creatures in the mammalian era, like the mastodon, the giant sloth, explorers in the 17th and 18th century who came into the Amazon, recorded spiders the size of cars, if not houses, and moving around.
They still have those?
And they still have those, yeah.
They still have the spiders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, they're not house size necessarily.
No, they're like 5-6 feet in diameter.
Are they? Did they get that big? I didn't see the discovery on that.
Out in the west, going.
Yeah. They're still there, but it's because the oxygen is so prevalent there. And there's something to be said that in the ancient record, if the oxygen output was making our animals bigger, it probably made us bigger too.
For sure.
So, I mean, they found the bone of Moses, presumably. They didn't confirm that, but it was pretty much the size of my hand, and it was this little finger right here, this little knuckle, rather.
Yeah. Yeah. So who's to say?
Exactly.
It's believed there's an archaeologist who had found one of the Arks of the Covenant at the base of the Temple Mount.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He took pictures and everything. And of course, he reported it to the government, and they shut it all down and reburied everything. So, with that being said, the same guy, from what I understand, when he was looking into Noah's Ark, got wind that Noah and his wife were buried in a neighboring village, went in and brought it to light as a discovery, and everything disappeared.
Yeah,
they literally dug them up, and everything disappeared. Now nobody knows where they are. Crazy. I say Vatican. Just saying.
Could be. I mean, it makes sense. It's a biblical figure. I mean, that makes sense.
It's freaking Noah. They're going to grab him. Yeah. And of course, that's out like Turkey way, right?
Yeah. Mount Ararat was right there, and they lived at the foot of the mountain until they didn't.
So that I'm not surprised when you say they found maybe a little bit, a little piece, because it's very possible when he was moved.
That's the size of my hand, dude. It's this knuckle right here.
I know.
It's the size of my hand.
Right. But I'm saying, I can go with that if they did indeed find the burial site and relocate the bones. Then it's very possible that
that is entirely possible. I mean, if you're going to take bones, you're going to take them. George joined us. Welcome, George. I want to give the Guardian made an interesting thing. I want to talk about it a little bit. He says, weren't there stories about red-haired giants in Peru and around in the Andes, homes with giant doors? I think you're absolutely correct about that.
All over the world, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that is the patent description of the Native American encounters, and believe it or not, the recent Kandahar encounters in Afghanistan.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, ancient architecture. Like I said, I've been fortunate enough to travel many parts of the world, and one thing I've noticed, I have found myself a couple of times only in all the places I've been. One is I was when I was in the south of France, I was in a church, and this church had doors so big that you're thinking, why do you need doors so big? And I had my son. I took a picture of him, and he looked this freaking big next to this door. And then they had a man door that was put in at the very bottom. But do you know how many locations are like that in the ancient world? And you're thinking, like steps that are so massive that you're just like, this cannot be for a normal person to climb. It
can't be.
Doors that big. It can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the Petra, the thing in Petra.
Same in Petra, yeah.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But there's something. Getting into structure, since I brought it up on the screen there. This is a rendering of Stonehenge, not an accurate depiction of a henge, I should say. But if we follow this and we say our ancient ancestors were a great deal bigger, Are they the ones building these things then because they could? They could stack these stones because they could they could do it. I mean, they had the strength.
It's believed. It's
Yeah.
believed that even, I mean, again, we can hypothesize and
Yeah.
hypothesize it. Some people say, well, yeah, the pyramids are built the same way, just, but I mean, again, there's no real way of knowing, but it was done with such precision that,
Yeah.
you
I
have
mean,
to have a pretty good bird's eye view or,
well, if you're a
really
giant.
technologically advanced. Yeah, exactly.
I'm kidding about that part.
Exactly.
Because
I don't
even
know.
if you are.
I've done shows where I have researched and found images that, carvings inside inside of mountains and so on. You're looking at them going, what could have made something this substantial? I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But then if, let's get into these alleged petrified giants.
Oh, yes. I have stuff on that too.
Right? Like, tell me that's not crazy stuff.
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
insane. I have.
Yeah.
This one is not a good example, but
Yeah.
it is an example nonetheless. This is in, I think, I want to say Indonesia, but I could be wrong about that. But basically, they see the idea of a human torso, but the face itself is actually carved.
Yeah.
So that's a poor example, but there's the elephant island in Iceland.
There's giant snakes that are so big that the way it wraps around and the head comes out, it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Are they ancient architecture? Yeah, you can ask yourself, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But there are some, just the way they're laid down or up on a mountain ridge, like a sleeping giant. And you look at just this random foot coming out of a mountain, and that's all there is. Like, you have to think about it. Like I said this last night, how long did it take to carve Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse? Those two mountain ranges.
Crazy Horse is still being built.
See what I mean? How long has that guy been at it? Like one guy,
Yeah.
But Mount Rushmore, all of that, like you have to look at how long it would take to do this, and then you think to yourself, okay, so the illusion is that the ancients were, and I say illusion, were less advanced than what we are, where I think it was really the opposite, because maybe they were not suppressed with their technology.
Yeah.
I believe that there were advanced races here, and that they were teaching a lot of this stuff.
Look at the hammer in Texas.
For sure. Out of place artifact. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't there a cell phone? I don't know if that was debunked or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some of that when you're looking at it's kind of going like, oh, okay, we're getting into time travel stuff, which is a whole other thing, because there was a guy that showed up in some kind of a tube, and he's still in it. And it was just like, there was something like 100 years apart or something as to papers and stuff that they found in his pockets and stuff. Like, again, we did a whole show on this on the Gray Zone, Joe and I, and it was just like, the stuff I found was incredible. But getting back into this stone stuff, it's like there's just some of it is just so random that there's just no way out in the middle of nowhere would they have carved it. It just doesn't make any sense. But
exactly.
We weren't there. It's all possible, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's that horrible word I don't like, unexplained.
I know. Well, it's explained. We just don't have the right explanation.
We just don't have proof. I guess there's no proof.
Yeah, we don't have the right explanation. That's all.
Right.
So.
But I mean, you're still looking at a type of being that has definite roots to us. I mean, they all look like us from what we could tell. Well, there was the case of the Irish king, who was supposed to be a giant and was there up until like mid 19th, maybe very early 20th century. And it was a tomb. You could walk in, you could visit it, and it was like a 12-foot human skeleton. It wasn't carved, it was bone.
Yeah.
And, he was an old Irish king. And they let you go visit this, and then they shut it down, and it disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
All right, around the early 20th century. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, come on.
Again, you start factoring in all of that. I have a picture that I shared last night. I'm going to show you guys.
Okay.
So anybody who was in chat that was on last night would know this. But this is a new discovery, okay? And it's from the Devil's Tower in Wyoming.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
the flat top.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened is they had a group of scientists who came in, and essentially they decided to conduct photographic seismic readings. Like they were conducting seismic readings, essentially is what they were doing. And they discovered something incredibly large, and it looked like it was a petrified root system below the tower.
Yeah.
So they measured
Petrified
this
tree. Yeah.
at 4 miles deep by 7 miles wide. So I'm going to show you a picture of
Yeah,
this.
please do.
Yeah. It
be
means they have to knock.
fantastic.
I don't know. I might knock yours off if I do that.
Okay,
though.
go ahead. Knock it off.
Well, I don't know if it may let me just do it. I don't know if it will or not, but if not, here it is. Oh, no. Yeah, yours is there too.
That's
so,
mine. Here, let me show you yours.
Yeah, you have to remove yours. Okay, so
go.
here we go. So here it is. So this is, this is what the mountain question.
Yeah.
And here is the petrified root system that's 4 miles deep, 7 miles wide.
Yeah, it's an old tree. You can just tell by the strata on it. It's an old tree.
I know, right? But that's the problem is they're being passed off as mountains, and people are just being made to feel foolish at the mere fact that they are, that you are doubting academia. So it's like, this is a mountain.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's freaking not a mountain. And these things are all over the damn place. So when you take a drone, one guy was taking a drone and going over top of these flat tops, which were alleged mountains everywhere.
Right.
And they could see the tree rings inside of them.
Oh, they could also see the center, the hollowed center, because that's what rotted out first.
Yeah.
And in some cases, you can actually see where the old ancient tree tipped, fell, what have you, because there's spikes sticking up, like when a tree falls in the woods.
Yes.
But
what about the ones that are flat?
Exactly.
How big do you have to chopped. Be? Right? Exactly.
That was chopped.
How big do you have to be to take down a tree that size?
Well, we take down pretty big trees ourselves as humans.
Sure.
And if you compare, even comparatively, but still, you make a very good point.
They're trying to pass it off as a mountain.
Yeah, it's not a mountain.
It would take you, when you stand beside something like that, because when you look at the photos of people who actually, like, you can go Google it. Sure. They look like really little, like little dudes.
They look like ants.
Yeah, we're not taking down anything that big ourselves on this. Unless you've got lasers technology or something. I don't know, but mind you, again, I'm not a lumberjack. I don't do this. However, it just raises the question that there are things that we don't have the answers to, and we are being put and led down a road to think one thing. It's just, it kind of makes you think like it's like a reset thing. It's kind of,
I don't know, honestly, because it seems to me that is our history, and why hide our history? I don't get it. Is it because it runs into someone's narrative? Possibly. That kind of makes sense.
Sure.
If you have a popular narrative you're trying to push, and for whatever reason, honestly though, I don't get it. I don't get we were gigantic freaking people 100,000 years ago. So what? Big deal. Show me,
Yeah.
If they had giant sloths and now it's the size of a baby, it makes sense that there were giant humans. That makes sense to me. I wouldn't be surprised to see a giant skeleton.
There were a lot of giant animals.
Oh yeah,
back then. But even those for people of faith, you look in the Bible. It says, there were giants.
Yeah.
In those days,
in
giants
those days,
walked the earth in those days. So, we definitely know they're there. And of course, there's the whole Nephilim story, and so on. But Is that the case? Is it not? Then the flood came to wipe them out. I think it would be curious to date when the flood actually happened to the time when they were there, because they're still walking the earth apparently.
Oh, yeah, all you have to do is climb a high enough mountain, you avoid the flood.
Yeah, yeah. But it kind of makes you wonder,
Yeah.
are these petrified people that, the flood comes along, you just lay down to die, everything recedes, and you just.
The thing is, I don't know that it like, okay, there's the woman of Alaska, the mountain range, the Alaskan woman or something like that, and supposed to be a giant that fell on the mountain during the cataclysm, be it the flood or not. I don't think it mentions it, but at one point in Earth's history, and this is documented, there's this thin carbon ribbon that stretches literally halfway around the world. And it's because Earth was hit at one point by a solar flare powerful enough to cook that side of the planet. And that makes more sense to me, that we're seeing petrified things that are laying down, flash burned, or what have you. Or even an ice age, if you want to go the opposite way. An ice age could easily flash freeze someone, and then they're going to petrify over time.
I agree 100%. So I don't know. It's just, some things are hidden in plain sight. And I think if we just turn around and pay attention to what we're looking at and don't be so quick to discount it, like even factoring in that ancient civilizations made their way to this side of the world. Again, I had an incredible woman named Deborah Thunderbeat, who's been on my show at least 3 times, and she does a tour called Ancient Egypt in Arizona, and there are Egyptian structures in Arizona. So when they say the whole Grand Canyon thing, and they say, oh no, there's nothing in the Grand Canyon, this guy is like a charlatan, it's like, there's something in the Grand Canyon. There's a pyramid, there is a sphinx, there are things within the mountains, and oh wait, where the discovery was made is under NASA's control apparently, and people are met with armed resistance.
If you go into a certain part of the Grand Canyon, you're going to get arrested. Absolutely. By federal agents. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Correct. So I don't know. I think he's just got to really start looking at things, and it's a thing. It's a thing. So
it is a thing, and it's sad that we don't have better access to what really happened in our ancient record. I mean, we have writings, but I mean, our ancients wrote things, and again, we have to rely on scholars to interpret these things for us.
Not everybody could read and write.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we don't, I mean, I get going to ancient sites. I have traveled to many ancient places, in my travels, and they get really finicky, but don't take pictures, don't touch this, don't touch that.
Yeah.
I understand that. A, safety, B, preservation. Then you have to look at the ecosystem, the preservation, depending on where you are. There's a lot to factor in, and I'm all for all of that. Sparky makes a good point when talking about Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli is one of my pet peeves. I get really ornery about it because it is this incredible place that was deliberately buried. It's not the oldest. There's several others like that. They just found one in the last 2-3 years, I believe, 5 years, that's older than Göbekli.
Yeah, it's like 5 or 6 miles south of it or something.
It is. Yeah, it is. And now the people who built them buried them. Okay.
Yeah.
For what reason? Apparently it's only a portion of it was excavated. It's much bigger underneath.
Yeah.
But here's what gets me is that, okay, there's a 3-letter, German organization right now. It comes up a lot, starts with a W, but we're gonna leave it alone. I don't want to fly, I guess. I'm gonna leave it alone. But they do, they invest money in archaeology, things like that. And they invested something like $9 or $10 million into the site. And under the condition that it was under their control for something like a decade or something like that.
Right.
And they've reburied it, by the way. I'm sure they've gone under. I'm sure they've looked around. I'm sure they got what they wanted. It's been reburied, and the reason that they reburied it was for future archaeology. Never mind that 3/4 of it hasn't been touched. But here's the worst part.
I
They
don't believe
planted
that. Go
trees
ahead.
over it. They planted trees over it,
Oh
allegedly,
no.
which will destroy
Yes.
everything.
Oh,
What did
no.
they find that they don't want us to know? You see, we don't have access to that. You have a very elite group of people who have access to these things and determine who gets to know what. And again, like I said this last night, was it Orson Welles? I said, "Control the past, you control the future."
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much like that. So again, that's an article that I've read a couple of articles on it, and it was very heart-wrenching to see.
Yeah, that is horrible. I didn't know about the reburial. That is
With the
horrific.
trees, yeah.
With trees. That's, come on. Heidi asked if I whispered on my mic. I did. I did whisper on my mic. I said,
Yeah.
I can't believe they did that.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was, it's that type of activity that really kind of cements that there is an agenda that is being supported. I mean, from in more recent history, the Smithsonian taking all the giant bones. I mean, they went into Oaxaca and took all the giant bones from a location there, a dig there.
Oh, and into the ocean, seawater would
Yes,
just
exactly.
emulsify everything.
Yeah.
The thing is we are not, we are not made privy to everything that's out there, and it's been conditioned and conditioned. You have to ask yourself, okay, why was it buried in the first place by the people who built it? Were they trying to just hide something? Was it a natural disaster? The story goes is that they themselves buried it. So, I guess you're in a desert area. You got a lot of help doing it. Why did they leave in the first place? It's like one of those things that a lot of these ancient civilizations just pick up and move elsewhere.
Well, if I remember correctly, I'm gonna tap into a piece of history here that if was it not the Mongols, if they found something that was, I don't know, counter to them, which most things were, because no one wanted the Mongols around, but they would actually take it down and then bury it. They would bury it. So it could have been something along those lines. That's a guess. I'm just.
It could have been. It could have
But
been.
it's like, okay, we don't like these people. These Göbekli Tepe people. We're gonna bury them completely. They never existed. And then we come on.
They wiped them out.
Yeah.
But why you find it? Why rebury it?
Why rebury it? They found something there.
That's the story anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I watched a really amazing foreign film on Göbekli Tepe and on spiritualism and how people move through reincarnating to different lives and how it was always the same people, different roles, like the soul circle, right?
Oh, sure.
And it all stemmed and had to do with the lives they had in Göbekli Tepe. And, it's one of those things. It was also a Turkish film. And what was so fascinating about it was the things that are hidden in plain sight. There's so many little hints in here, many little hints with symbolism. And I just sat there going, I really resonated with that film. It was very well done.
Yeah.
So
speaking of Göbekli Tepe, I know of the people pillars.
yes,
They all have their hands in front of them, and so if you dig down deep enough, so do the Easter Island
yes,
statues.
right, same.
And so maybe that was we were talking about ancient civilizations. That could have been an outpost.
Yeah, burying some of That's what I'm saying. Like there's so much of that, and I don't know. I think now with technology, things are resurfacing, but that's part of the point as well. Is with our hidden history, is there are things coming to light, and people are going to a great deal of time and expense to bring our history to the surface. So when I think of anybody trying to rebury anything, it's something substantial. Future archaeology. Well, I don't know. Why couldn't they just dig up the other 3/4?
It's That's like the kids
Yeah,
at the sandbox.
yeah,
You know, in the
I know.
museums they have the little mini
Yeah,
archaeological digs,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
find, look, I
exactly.
found a fake dinosaur bone, and the kids are super excited about it. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, they cover it up. So
I know.
but I mean, you don't
I
do
know.
that in the real world, man. I mean,
Well, I
come
mean,
on.
I remember when it happened. I think it was a lot of uproar on two levels because of where it was and
Yeah.
because of who did it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Because
get
of
you.
like,
I get
oh,
you.
so because kind of like control freaks, and this is how we're gonna manage this narrative, and all of a sudden you take this substantial location and you give it half-ass sort of reason for future archaeology.
Yeah, sure.
What? Okay, why the trees? I get
Yeah,
burying it, but why the
the
trees?
trees.
Which
I
will
don't get that.
destroy it.
Yeah,
They want to make
exactly.
sure nobody gets back to it,
Oh, I know. It's horrible.
essentially.
And
Yeah.
then they're going to get screamed at for tearing out a bunch of trees and
No, I
re-examine this whole
know.
thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I haven't seen anything super recent on it. Probably in about 6 months, but
Mm,
they have a way of just burying information after a while.
sure.
You see
Sure.
less of it, and then public outcry goes away, right?
Oh, yeah.
Except with this guy, I don't like it at all, and I have no problem voicing it. So,
That's okay by me.
yeah.
If we're to also take a look at the larger picture of our diminished collective history across the globe, there's all kinds of stuff that have been
Mhm.
taken away from us as far as historical significance,
Mhm.
and there are also stories that, for a long time, for example, the city of Troy was
Mhm.
thought to be complete myth until the one guy found it
Exactly.
and proved it was there. So,
Mhm.
and they didn't rebury Troy. I mean, so I think
I
you're
know.
onto something. I think you're onto something. They definitely found
Mhm.
something interesting there that they
There's
can't let
so
the
much
public know about.
underground,
Oh
now
yeah,
with all of these satellites. I know there's an archaeologist out of Egypt who has found so many ancient structures under the sands of Egypt
oh
through
sure.
using satellite technology, and they're doing it everywhere now. I think it was a 14-year who found which city was it in the Amazon, the one they were looking for, the city
City of
of gold,
Gold,
El Dorado,
El
El Dorado.
Dorado. Yeah,
He was believed that he found El Dorado,
huh?
but under a forest canopy through satellites.
Through
Just
lidar. Yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing.
no, it's just through satellites. Like I think he went on Google Earth,
Oh, there it is.
and started working. Yeah, started working with different, just really working it and
All right.
taking photos and I don't know. He found it though, and when it was explored, it was there.
I'll be darned. That's
So
pretty intriguing.
I know. I mean, I don't know what kind of access, I think that's when they would have gone in with LiDAR and such. And now they have even, more in-depth technology that you can come in from above that surpasses LiDAR.
Oh, I know. It's
So you
amazing.
you can see so much. But the fact is there it is.
Yeah.
Things are surfacing, and
Well, it's like
the
the
lost
the
city of gold right
oh yeah,
there.
Lost City of Gold. That was a good show.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
there was oh, well, look at the pyramids at Giza. They're discovering all those layers and that
Mhm.
huge device, and it's like, oh yeah, maybe it was a power plant of some sort.
But they knew it was there. Dr. Zai Hawass did an interview
Yes.
back in I don't know, the late 70s, saying, yes, we know that there's a whole other substructure underneath. We know that there are rooms, and I know people who have gone. I certainly didn't get to see that when I went to Egypt, but
Mhm.
since then there's a lot of tours that take place there now, and people do special events, and you get very friendly with the people. All of a sudden you get shown things. I mean, I got, the pyramid shut down for me for like about 40 minutes just by being an exceptional tipper.
I like it.
I know there were
That's
two of
awesome.
us in it. That was it for 40 minutes. Because we can't give you more than that, but we'll let you have it. I was like, Okay.
Done.
And then they showed me another area to go down into, but it was open. They eventually, I think they opened it the following year to tourists.
Mm,
So it was in the works, you know.
gotcha.
So, but I mean, it just goes to show
Yeah.
that it's all there, you know.
Yeah.
People were thinking, oh yeah, you know, like the Egyptians had boats and stuff like that. We've seen them painted. There's one literally in a tunnel between the pyramid and the Sphinx. It's a full blown big crazy.
Yeah.
It's in there.
It's in there. Yeah. I've seen that imagery. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's phenomenal.
It's there. I know. In a
That's
tunnel. It's
in
just
a
like
tunnel.
left it there.
Let's
Constructed it.
stick a boat in a tunnel. You know what? Here, Bob,
Yeah.
here's your task.
I
Put a
know.
boat in a tunnel.
Putting a boat in the tunnel. I know. Poor Bob. Maybe that's a guy I saw when I was in there. Poor dead Bob. But
Poor
you
dead
know,
Bob.
I mean, there's so many things to question because it never had a pharaoh in it. It was never meant for
Oh
that.
no,
And
it
you know
was.
that now.
Yeah.
So what's all this other stuff? And you know, there are chambers. You can go down into the Sphinx. There are chambers in it. You can walk around and
Yeah. That's true.
ritualistic stuff and
Good times.
so I know, but it goes to show you talking about our hidden history. There's so much that is on a need to know basis, and I guess they figure we mostly don't need to know.
I personally think that's a crime. I mean, you know, knowledge is power and all that fun stuff. How are we going to learn from our mistakes if we keep burying our history?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's a tough one because, you know, now you get into Tartaria. Now you're getting into.
I mean, let's.
You know, I
It's
know.
insane. It's absolutely insane.
Tartaria
And
is like the new
Tartaria was
Atlantis.
apparently. Sorry?
Tartaria is like the new Atlantis as far as
It really is.
the
I mean,
curiosity behind
yeah.
it. Getting into, because a lot of stuff that gets mentioned, you know, it's like you're going back into the 1600s,
Mhm.
like they were, you know, up near Russia area. And I mean, so throughout the ancient
North
world,
end of Siberia. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
that's saying something.
it is to build anything of that significance. And then
Mhm.
just to, with technology and allegedly tapping into the ether. You know, an
Oh,
archaeologist friend of mine from the UK will say, you know, because they'll look at some cathedrals, for example, and say,
yeah.
no, this was built by Tartaria, and you know, we just took it over. It couldn't have been built by man. We didn't have the technology. And then, you know, he'll say, no, we know it was built by modern day. Well, I say modern day in the last few hundred years, you know, because it would take 500 years to build it. Like we could see the progress
Right.
of every century in the workmanship or the stone,
Right.
things like that. So there's an argument for every side, and he's not like he's an archaeologist, but he's also, you know, written books on crystal skulls and UFOs and
Mhm.
ancient history. And, you know, he's biblically scholared and all kinds of things besides that. So he's very open minded. He's not the typical, you know, I'm of an academia thinking. Like I am
Right.
an open minded academic thinker.
So he's a
which is,
realist, which is great.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Got to get him on the show too.
Yeah. Different
Take it.
perceptions right there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
There's also a see if I have a slide for this, but there's also something to be said for, or in relation to, I should say, the whole idea that. Wait, you touched on it actually a little bit earlier when we talked about the whole Nephilim thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were the Watchers, and then they fell in love with,
Mhm.
you know, human females and made babies, and they were giants, and so on and so
Mhm.
forth.
Mm.
That is, for me, in contradiction to the whole natural thing that, you know, said we humans were gigantic at one point, not unlike
Yeah.
the giant sloth was gigantic at one point. Now it's just this little creature. So
Yeah.
I think there was a eventual evolution down. So whether the whole Nephilim thing could have happened, and if you're going to have creatures that are giant babies, or babies
Yeah.
that become giant, I
Yeah.
assume the women would have to be kind of big themselves, you know.
Well,
So
I mean, if you're getting into that lore, they're saying like women were dying because they couldn't necessarily give birth. They would
I
die
see.
after birth to beings this size. Like the children would have been like substantial in size, you know. So I mean, if you start looking at it, you have to start looking at all the sources of where it comes from, and there's a lot of places that you can look for that. But if it's a natural evolution, are we talking two different races? When you start looking at giants to the
Yeah.
point where there are giants and our indigenous are killing them, that
Yes, I
tells
was
us there's
just
two
going to
different,
touch on that.
right? Two
Yeah.
different size or two different
Right.
species or races of humans at that time.
That I think that's exactly what it was, and they had become, at least in the Native American tradition, they
Yeah,
had
Gulliver's
become.
Travels.
Oh, Gulliver's Travels. Yeah, I actually have a slide on that. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the natives killing the giants,
Hmm.
there that would seem to, and given the way their behaviors was described, they were kind of brutish and just pick up a person and start chewing on them. There would super gross, by the way.
Yeah.
I would suspect that there was some sort of breakdown in society and they became brutish. They got knocked back to the Stone Age, maybe also by the Ice Age or what have you.
Hmm.
Something befell them that they lost all sense of their culture
Hmm.
and
Or
became
maybe they were
brutish.
just running out of food.
Could have been, yeah. I mean, a deer this size is not going to sustain you for very long. Oh, herd
Neither,
won't.
not yeah, neither a
Yeah.
person of that size. But I mean, some of the giants that you're seeing, and even some of the museums,
Mhm.
I've seen photos of the ones in America. I mean, you might have a guy who's 8, 9 feet tall.
Yeah. It's
You
not
know,
too terrible. I mean, a
it's not.
couple.
I mean, 3 feet taller, 2 feet taller isn't.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
but I mean, when you're getting into some of the ones, it's almost like ogre size when you're getting into like 18 feet, like in Sardinia
Yeah. Yeah.
or in
Yeah.
the ancient world where the depictions seem to be so much bigger.
Oh yeah, one guy's holding a lion like a house cat,
Well,
and
that's
some of those
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh. Yes.
Yeah, it's like, here's my here kitty kitty. Like
Meow.
I know exactly. Lion's probably thinking, oh God, don't eat me. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, some of them with Gilgamesh, it shows you that there was. We're not looking at this ogre style. "Rah, I pick you
Yeah.
up,
Right.
try to chomp on you." You're looking. I mean, highly educated
Oh yeah.
being here. You
He
know.
was a king. I mean, for
Well, you didn't have to be bright to be a king.
that's a
Unfortunately,
fair point. That's a fair
you
point.
just had to have the right bloodline.
Yeah.
But I mean, there didn't seem to be that. Then you can get into some different, the powers that be wanting information.
Mhm.
There's something that was floating around when Iraq was when we had the Gulf War. How Hillary, leave that there,
Oh yeah.
actually had given out orders to a certain group of troops, and they were looking for the burial site of Gilgamesh, and they figured they knew where it was.
Hmm.
Why would you
Hmm.
want? Why would you want to? Just saying.
If we're dealing with a ancient astronaut theory type setting, and these were creatures or beings, excuse me, beings from another world, and they had the technology to get here. Yeah, I could
It's a
I
bit
could
of a
see.
rabbit hole to go play
It
in.
is a rabbit hole, but I mean that would be. I mean,
Unlike the
it's
squirrel hole.
yeah, but there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can see wanting to see if they were buried with any sort of technology that was more advanced than what we have now. But that is a very interesting thing. I didn't know
I
that was
thought
in
so
her
too.
emails. That's kind of
I saw
interesting.
it come up a few times, and I'm like, you can only really believe, half of what you see, and
Right.
even less of what you read these days. But I did find it interesting that it kept coming up, and worthy of a good look around just to see. But I thought I'd mention it since we were on the topic.
Yeah, no, I mean, good point.
Well, it's just hidden history,
Yeah, exactly.
We're not veering off of the narrative. It's just like, again, this happened and they're not making it really well known. I think it's when they got a hold of certain files, leave that one right there, that they found this order.
That's intriguing. That's very intriguing. I didn't know about that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of giants, spooky asses about, it says rather that we have scientific evidence that hobbits existed on. I don't think that's true. Yeah, there was there was a race of miniature people. Yes. I mean, and apparently they're still around. They're in not Fiji.
Indonesia or something. Fiji.
Something
there's
like
some
that.
far off island or something, aren't they?
Yeah. But they are smaller, and they have they're
3 feet tall, something like that.
Yeah, 3 or 4 maybe.
Yeah,
and they I want to say it's near the Philippines, but I could be wrong.
Almost like
that.
Pygmy size, just little.
Well, but they have this weird kind of a costume dress tribal thing going where they almost look like porcupines, but it's shaggy. Yeah.
Mini elephants they found there too. So, what is up with that environment?
I don't know.
See what I mean? Like, let's hypothesize for a moment.
Could be the experimental island.
I know.
How small can we make it?
I know. But let's hypothesize for a moment. What if, we know that there are cave systems all over this planet that are unexplored, and some of them were used for ancient civilizations, and they were abandoned over time, and everybody came up above ground. But what about these huge caves? Like, is it Cambodia or Thailand? Cambodia, I think, where, you have the cave is so big it has its own ecosystem.
Oh, that's Vietnam.
Yeah. So let's go with that. And then we start going down. Are there other entrances just like that? Because there are a lot of places that claim that they have entrances into an inner Earth or Middle Earth sort
Mount
of
Shasta,
thing.
Perfect example. Mount Shasta.
There. Don't go wandering. But exactly. That's exactly right. So, ancient Lemuria for sure. But
Indonesia. You're right. It was Indonesia.
It was Indonesia.
Sorry.
Okay.
Good job.
So how do we know
that
there aren't more civilizations?
Oh, there have to be.
That will show up.
Yeah. There has to be. There's look at the Arctic hole. It's apparently a very real thing. Even on Google Earth, you can find it. Yeah. There's a big old hole right in the middle of the Earth.
So we know.
Yeah. So it's just, it still not grieves me, but it still nags at me that we don't have more access to our history, because I think far too much of it has been hidden, and I think it's a detriment to our larger existence. We need to know where we came from. I think that's a fundamental fact, and we can even step way back if you want to, and given that the human biological clock, if you will, circadian rhythm is what I was trying to say. I'll use that word. Yeah. It matches Mars versus Earth. Did we come from Mars originally? There's a few theories out there that say we do. There
are, and people having constant dreams of being in places with red sand.
Yeah.
And apparently there are a lot of abductees who have these apocalyptic type dreams.
Yeah.
And this is something that some researchers have found, those who study the phenomenon, is that a lot of these people are describing the same thing with the red sands and the apocalypse and trying to get away from the space. Or is that like an imprinted memory, perhaps?
Could be.
Could
be. Could well be. Our rovers up there are finding more and more interesting artifacts that speak to, a higher
Mm-hmm.
civilization existing there at one time. And, if
Mm-hmm.
that's the case,
Well,
well,
people want to go back. I think Elon Musk was looking for something like 100 volunteers for people to go and live there. Never, you don't ever get to come back. And I think he's got over like 2,000 people who want to do
let's
it.
do it. Well, they
I
just came
know.
up with the thruster that can cut the travel time down to 30 days. That's a plasma-based thruster, and it'll get you there in 30 days. Okay, now it's a month
Crazy.
back and forth.
Yeah, I know, but isn't it
Doable.
nuts? It's nuts. It's
It
nuts.
is crazy. It is absolutely. I think it's exciting to be completely
It
honest.
is, but for me, I just look at we have this incredible planet
Hmm.
that is entrusted to us, and I say that because, we're under this very big misconception that it's ours. Well, we'll be long gone, and it will continue, and it can sustain itself. Some believe that it has its own heartbeat. The Schumann resonance, the
Oh
heartbeat
yeah,
of the
yeah. I was
planet,
just gonna
and
say.
it has its frequency, its vibration. It will survive. It takes back what we've done to it. It
Oh yeah.
fixes itself. It takes it back. It is entrusted to us. Why are we so hell bent just leaving, trying to get on to like
A dead world.
a dead world when there's parts of this planet that we have never explored? Has
Oh
anyone
yeah.
thought to think, well, why do these other interdimensional beings or extraterrestrial beings come back? Or maybe they've been here all along. Why are they here? Or why are they returning?
Right.
Or why are they curious just so much about us? Like maybe there's something really great about this place. They come here, and ancient astronauts have come here to mine and to look for things. Why are we not factoring all of that in?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's something to be. If you're gonna look, yeah, okay. So we have the Mars thing, the potential Mars thing. I'll say.
Yeah. Okay.
Then there's other other witnesses and what have you who have Rendlesham, good example. The one soldier who was taken into the ship that landed in the forest. For him, it was 5 minutes. For everyone else, it was 11 hours or something like that. But when he was in there, there were a bunch of little, and it was kind of a mechanical
Mm.
environment for him. But there were these little spheres flying around, and he kept hearing
Mm.
a voice or two talking to him. Says,
Mm.
"Listen, we're not here to hurt you. You're going to be fine. We're just doing a couple little checks, and we're going to make sure that that no one's trying to mess with you because we're worried about the future staying intact. That's where we're
Yeah.
from. It's all good." And that gave me a little bit of hope. It's like, oh, our future selves are checking in with us. So that could be the case here. They
Hmm.
could be some sort of temporal guard, if you will. I know that's very sci-fi,
Yeah. Hmm.
but it would make a little more sense to see these things not only underwater, but
Hmm.
in mountain retreats and what have you, including Mount Shasta. That has
Hmm.
a lot of its lore with ships flying in and out of the mountain.
Hmm.
So, and it's not the only mountain. There's the mesa you went to basin where Skinwalker Ranch is. That thing has
Oh,
ships going out of it all the time.
you get into that where the Ute are and you have the Navajo. First off, the
Hmm.
Navajo it's one of these places, the Navajo Nation, it's the perfect storm of everything.
Yeah,
Everything happens there. There are several people who have seen saber-toothed tigers come through,
saber-tooth dire wolves have
dire
come through.
wolves, everything.
Yeah.
No, 5-foot giant spiders, just saying. That's where
Oh
these
yeah.
things are. Just small bit of what's there. You
Hmm.
go a few hours away, you have Skinwalker Ranch. You go even further from that, and you've got Blind Frog Ranch,
Hmm.
which states they've had the dire wolves
Yeah.
there as well, and they've also, the indigenous people of that area have flat out said, they're finding things from Incans. It's like, the
Yeah.
Incans were this far up. They're like this far
Yeah.
up. They returned home. They were here before they went to South America. What?
Interesting.
That's what I said. I was
That's
like, well,
very
let me get
interesting.
my job off the floor. Like, what? Like it, right? Yeah, it was fascinating to think that it goes, these were our ancestors. Like they went down and came back. because of the conquistadors, right? The
Yeah.
Spanish came in, they came back. So this is what Blind Frog Ranch is all about. I mean, it's just like, what do
That's
they
not the
bring back
only.
with them?
We'll take into account that these pyramids, these structures they have also been found at the southern end of Alaska. I think even part of Canada up there.
Yes. Yes, exactly. See, there we
So,
go. Like, I'm sorry. There's so much about our ancient history that is surfacing.
yeah.
And with technology, people are finding little bits and pieces of it. And eventually they're going to connect the dots.
Well, it's happening already.
It
Across
is.
the globe, it's happening
Mhm.
already.
It is.
And yeah, I agree with Sherry, by the way. I also love my
I
planet
know.
Earth very much. Mars, I like to visit, but I don't want to live
Yeah.
there.
I love the night sky. I love the stars. I love
Yeah.
everything about it. But I do enjoy being an earthling.
Me
So,
too. Me
yeah.
too. I enjoy it. I like it here. It's good.
Yes.
It's home.
Yes. Except for Mount Shasta. A little bit leery about that
I'm
one.
still gonna check that out one of these days.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But there's a lot of really intriguing places here with a
We should
lot
totally
of.
do a show on that, like do a live broadcast where we explore the cave.
You could. I'll be getting video footage. You need to put this up. Yeah. Okay. Tim commentary.
We're now
Shasta.
5 miles
I found a
deep.
door. Bye-bye. Yeah.
The gray lizard guy says I have to go.
That's it right there. We're done.
We're done.
Yeah.
And
The
we're out.
lizard guy. Yeah, it's the best
Oh
part
my
right
gosh.
there.
Well, wasn't that one of the claims though in Shasta that the guy who went in there, he came back and says there are all kinds of different creatures down there. One of them looks like a velociraptor or something like that.
Underground bases.
Yeah. Well, he ran into one apparently exploring
Because
this.
there's a base there. Yes.
Yeah. But he described different creatures too, which is intriguing. It was like the Galactic Federation thing comes into play again there. It's like, oh, it's like a underground star base. It's kind of cool.
Bum, bum, bum.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. Yeah. Man, oh man.
Good times. It's interesting. I should totally go check that place out. So
If you're that close, I'd have been there already. I don't know.
I hear you. No,
What are you waiting for?
Christmas.
Take notes. Yeah. Take notes and photos and documentation.
Right. Oh, did you? I don't know if this is true, but I tend to think it wasn't. It was a stage. There was a guy recently who did a little personal expedition up there, and he said he was running all kinds of different things. I had to run from this weird little creature who kept throwing lightning bolts. It's like, what? And so he'd be limping along, and I don't know, some of the stage blood looked a little weird, and it's like,
Yeah.
right. But I mean, I hope
with a taser. Yeah.
it was. Yeah, I mean, his claims are weird. Nothing was on camera. I mean, all of it was after the fact. Never mind, he said, I took stuff with me, but it wasn't working. Every single time he said that. And the excuse got a little old for me, but I digress.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, it's got that kind of energy too that could it zaps things. And
That's true.
There's a lot there. Apparently there's some door that you can go up to. It's just, I don't know if it's just like a stone. They believe it was a gateway.
Oh.
To go in, it's kind of like.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think it's on like the eastern face or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So,
Gotcha.
maybe
Good
just
time.
get your hands on it and gone. Like, yeah.
But yeah, apparently there's a symbol there. It's kind of like a human hand.
I've known people who've gone up there. Yeah. There's, people have come on the show and talked about it. I'm just kind of like, oh, it's just a crazy place. But
good stuff.
But there's a lot of places like that.
Mm-hmm.
You start getting into all the national parks and things like that.
Oh, yeah. So there's a big conspiracy about the national parks.
411, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of that.
Yeah. That's for sure.
So, but that was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. Good stuff. So, if we have any questions in the chat, now's the time to ask them. We have a little over 5 minutes left in the program. So if you have any questions for us, please put some forth. we have a lot of people agreeing with what Michelle said about nature spirits and things coming full circle, which is good. We talked about the Hobbit people. And I'm trying to see if we missed any questions.
There's, you could touch on people and tribal people throughout different remote areas, of the world, especially being the Amazon, who've not had contact with people who live very primitively. We'll never really know their oral history because they'll tell you, South American government, stay away from these people. They'll kill you. They'll eat you. They'll everything. So how much more do we not know? Because, like I said, in this specific case, they don't communicate with us. So we don't really know what they know, what they have seen. The Amazon is just so dense and so many areas.
Yeah.
What's hidden underneath that canopy, for example?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's wild to think about. It is. We do have a question. The question is, what do you think is the best evidence dealing with giants? This is from Sparky Paranormal and Outdoors.
Best evidence. I mean, it's probably at the bottom of the Atlantic right now. But no, I think that I think things are being found every day. There's so much stuff. Again, look up the Kandahar giant. I mean, there's so many witnesses because it's so recent.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be, obviously, they've got their hoaxes for sure that are out there. But I think if just look at the architecture. Like I said, when I'm in this cathedral, I'm looking up at these doors. You know how high a cathedral goes up, like big giant,
Sure.
and that's the door. And you're sitting there. You look like a little thing right at the base of this door. And my son's like 6 foot tall. And he's just And then there's this little man door cut in. Start looking at the architecture, and don't just tolerate the answers of, well, yes, these big giant steps. They weren't for people. Meanwhile, you're trying to climb it, and you can see these little people trying to climb it. It's just like, no. There's a lot of common sense and open-mindedness that needs to be applied in some of these things. Don't just believe everything you hear. You can see it with your own eyes. If you can touch it, you have look at the logistics. Look at how our world is. What a set of stairs looks like. What a big door looks like, garage door, and you got a little man door in it. You have to think, okay, I have a big, crazy garage door because I got a freaking big dump truck coming through. It's big. It's big.
Yeah.
There's my little man door in there, though, for when I need to go in. It's the same idea to me. I've seen enough things throughout the ancient world to know, and that doesn't even cover what's here, like South America. That'd be an incredible excursion to go to and just see. But just right now, while we all still have like internet, just dig.
For sure.
That's all.
I also concur with Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, who says sometimes I think it's not meant for us to know these things. Well, I agree and I disagree. I think
I'm on the fence too.
I'm on the fence about that. Because I think when we have things like this, the guy there in the middle with the bone, the leg bone of a creature, or being, as Michelle likes to put it, and correctly so, we have the evidence of at least a 16-foot individual there.
Yeah, so, that's a human, that's...
Well, it was formerly human. That's my take. Yeah. That's my take.
Yeah.
No.
That's it, and I think we just have to again keep open minds and dig, go down those rabbit holes. Don't be afraid to.
Absolutely. And with that said, I will thank you very much, Michelle, for being on the air. We have 2 minutes left, and thank you for all of us who joined us watching and in the chat. My name's Tim Sudano. This has been Paranormal Insight. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com.